Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Chris and this is my How to Draw series. Today we have a very exciting lesson for you. This is my excited face because we're going to combine one of my favorite topics, which is gesture drawing, with an all-time interesting subject matter, which is the hand. The hand is one of those tricky subjects because it is so familiar to us as humans that we can instantly pick out in a drawing when something is off. Even though we might not be able to specifically say what's wrong with it, we say, yeah, that looks wrong. So it's one of those tricky kind of subject matters. And for me, it's interesting because the hand is something we always have with us to draw. Unlike our portraits or a figure, if you have a pen and a paper, you can just kind of look at your hand, hold it steady in a pose, and then attempt to draw it. So I want to kind of refresh our memories on what we've done so far, because we're going to try and combine everything we've talked about into this next lesson. If you have been following along, then this will just be a quick kind of summary. And if you're new to the course, I would recommend going back and kind of watching all of the previous 5 videos, I think. They're not very long, they're all less than 10 minutes, I believe. But they're instructional, they encourage you to practice, they give you some exercises to do on your own. And practice is king, really. If you practice with some instruction and some guidance, then you're going to get better for sure. So what have we talked about? We've talked about the circle. We've talked about lines. We've talked about line weight. Talked about perspective. And last lesson, we delved into the art of observing, looking like an artist, how to see basic shapes and kind of convey structure and form on a 2-dimensional plane. So today I'm going to pick a pose with my hand, and I'm going to encourage you to do the same. I want you to look at your hand first for a while and notice how many different shapes you can contort your hand into, how expressive it can be, almost an endless kind of supply of drawing reference. And there's some basic shapes we can see, but everything is continuously forming and melding into each other. The thumbs, these digits, are kind of squares, but mostly circled off, rounded off. So I'm going to pick a pose, maybe a fist, and I'll kind of do a profile view of it. Whatever you choose, it won't be exactly like mine, just because the way my hand looks versus yours, and the way I'm looking at my hand versus the way you're looking at your hand. So don't compare our drawings, but do follow me along. Grab your pen and paper and a pose, and we're going to just start with observing what we see. Squinting if you have to. Look at the basic shapes. Get them down with light line weight. And for this pose that I've chosen, there's not much perspective involved, so I'm going to just kind of take it at face value, try to draw what I see. Okay? Not talking about anatomy. We don't know anything about the hand. We're just looking at it. We're just looking at it and trying to draw it. So I'm gonna go ahead and start. Okay, so very quick, very rough, kind of messy, but I'm happy with proportions. I'm happy with where everything landed. And I got there with putting some construction lines. Notice I put some circles down for where the knuckles would be. That helps me kind of gauge where everything else could be in relation to each other. I probably went too dark too quickly on some of the lines, but I'm using charcoal. It's a little more challenging, but yeah. So we've got the knuckle here, the knuckle here. That's a very good kind of warm-up sketch. Let's try another one. I'm gonna go for a pose like this. And right away I'm noticing this line here and then this big triangle and the fingers and the thumb. So I'm just gonna go for it. Okay, so again, not perfect, right? But quick. And I got the basic shapes down. Maybe this is too long. This is too skinny perhaps, but what I want you to start noticing is how quickly I'm kind of going. And a lot of people will tell you not to go fast, to focus on accuracy. And there's something to be said about that for sure, for sure. But I hope what you're picking up is how dynamic and gestural these are. They don't feel stiff. They feel like there's some energy to them, even though it's a still pose, maybe you're working from a still image. There's some energy and motion in that pose. And I think the worst critique that I dislike hearing is that it feels stiff. You might have a very precise, proportionally precise drawing of something that just feels kind of constricted and stiff and lifeless. That is worse to me, in my opinion, than something that is flowing and free and fluid, but maybe not super accurate. This might be a preference, but I think whatever side of the line you fall on, you're going to benefit from a little bit of this gestural drawing. You can bring it into your more precise tendencies and vice versa. Maybe I could benefit from a little more precision, right? But I'm going to flop the page. We'll do one more together. Then I'm going to really talk more about gesture, what I'm thinking this time. Let me pick one more pose. Let's see. I don't know. Let's do that. Something like that. So there's some energy in this pose that I want to try and capture with a line of motion. And that line of motion is probably going to ride through the center of mass, generally speaking. It's not going to try and map it precisely, but I feel like something, the line of energy through this pose is what's going to guide the rest of the drawing for me. So I'm going to take a second, I'm going to look at my arm, I'm going to look at the pose, try to absorb what it is I want to capture about it. And for me, I've got some things popping out. I've got this energy pushing up and then up this way, and I like the angles here and here. And I want to make sure I capture the roundness of this top part with another kind of line of action. So let's give it a shot. So that'd be kind of a line of motion, a line of energy. Where it turns is where the wrist is. Okay, look how messy that is. For one, I'm gonna give myself a break because I'm using charcoal, and it's hard to work with the line weight being very light. Anyway, beyond the excuses, I'm gonna tell you I'm happy with the energy of this drawing. It is lacking quite a bit of precision, but what I think is captured is the energy of the pose and the fluidity of it. And if I were to draw with lighter lines initially, I could go back and I could really um, kind of maybe work in some of that precision. So the way I always work is I start gesturally, try to do it lightly, and then maybe on a new layer digitally, or if I'm working with this and I've already done it too hard, I can maybe kind of put a new fresh piece of paper on top, and some of that's going to pop through and you can kind of work with that as a guideline. But if you try to start gesturally and then go for precision, you're going to find your drawing's a little more lifelike, a little more energetic, and less stiff, which is something I just don't like to hear. So I hope this lesson was helpful. I hope you find that we're building on things from previous lessons, because next week we're going to take this concept of gesture, everything we're learning, we're going to take it forward and build it into the next one. So I want you to practice hands, and next time we're going to jump into portraits, and we're going to use the concept of gestures as well in portrait drawing. So I want to thank you for joining me. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time. Take care.